Have you ever entered a room and felt the atmosphere shift before you even said a word? No one looked your way. No one called your name. Yet somehow everything changed. The laughter got quieter. The air felt denser. People adjusted themselves, subtly crossed their arms, looked away, or stared just a little too long. You didn't speak, but your energy did. This isn't your imagination. It's not anxiety. It's not you overthinking. What you experienced was real, and it started long before that moment. You see, there was a time, maybe in your childhood, when you walked into rooms full of noise and performance, and you didn't know why they made you feel so tired. You couldn't explain why you sensed tension others ignored. You just felt it. Long before you knew what energy was, you were already reading it. Long before you heard the words shadow work or alignment, you were already embodying it. Over time, you probably started to wonder, why do people react to me like this? Some admired you. Some misunderstood you. Others quietly rejected you without reason. But the reason was never about what you did. It was about who you are. You weren't born to be invisible. You weren't designed to blend in. You were born to carry truth into places that have forgotten it to be a quiet disruption in a world addicted to noise. In this video, it's not just a breakdown of signs. It's a mirror, a reminder, a homecoming for those who've always known they were different, but never knew why. There are people who walk into a room and barely register. Then there are people like you. You step into a space, and without saying a single word, something shifts. The air feels thicker. The mood changes. Conversations falter. Some people look at you and quickly look away. Others stare not because you've done anything, but because they feel something. Something real. You've probably noticed it all your life. You enter a room and you can almost feel the invisible ripple. People stand up straighter. They fidget more. Some go quiet. You wonder if it's in your head, if you're being paranoid. But it's not. What they're reacting to isn't your clothes, your face, or your voice. They're reacting to your presence, that silent, powerful vibration that walks in ahead of you. This presence didn't come from status or performance. It came from alignment. From pain you've processed, truth you've claimed, and healing you've earned. And the thing is, you're not trying to be noticed. You're just being calm, rooted, awake. But in a world conditioned to chase attention through noise, your silence becomes magnetic. It becomes confusing to people who are used to superficiality. They feel something in you that they can't name, but can't ignore. Some are drawn to it, others are unsettled by it. Either way, they feel it. You don't enter the room, you interrupt it. Carl Jung once said, "The psyche transcends the body." He meant that your soul, your essence arrives before your footsteps. Before your lips part to speak, your energy has already made a statement. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to be real. And the world doesn't quite know what to do with someone like that. Your presence holds weight not because you're trying to dominate, but because you carry clarity. The kind of clarity that comes from walking through your own darkness and emerging whole. That kind of presence unsettles the fake and awakens the real. And that's why people remember you even if they forget your name. They remember how they felt when you walked in. They remember the way their own energy shifted. Maybe they felt inspired. Maybe they felt exposed. But they felt something. And in a world where most people blend into the noise, you create contrast just by existing. Your presence becomes a quiet mirror. It reflects who's grounded and who's not. Who's aligned and who's still lost in the performance. You don't need to prove anything. Your aura speaks before you do. So if you've ever walked into a space and felt like the atmosphere changed before you had the chance to say hello, trust it. That's not arrogance. That's self-awareness. And it's rare. And it's powerful. You don't need attention to hold space. You don't need approval to take up room. When you walk in, you don't just arrive, you reveal. And some people will never forget that moment, even if they never understand why. You've likely noticed it by now, the way some people react to you without cause. They tense up. They avoid eye contact. Their tone shifts mid-conversation. Or they offer subtle jabs dressed up as compliments. And you're left wondering, did I say something wrong? Was I too direct, too intense? But here's the truth, and it might free you. You didn't do anything wrong. You just exist in your truth. And for many people, that's enough to make them uncomfortable. Because when you've done the work to face your own shadow to bring your pain into the light, you automatically become a mirror. And that mirror, it shows others what they haven't dealt with. Carl Jung once said everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But most people aren't ready to understand themselves. Most people have built their identities on denial, on masks, on roles, on stories that help them avoid the uncomfortable. Then you walk in, not with judgment, not with criticism, but with clarity, with energy that says, I'm not afraid to be real. And that kind of presence unsettles those who are still hiding. You don't even have to speak. Your eyes alone say enough. Your stillness, your groundedness, your refusal to perform it threatens people who've spent their whole lives learning to blend in. You're not loud. You're not trying to intimidate. You're just present. And presence, when it's real, has a strange effect on the unhealed. It stirs the soul. It rattles illusions. Some will admire you. They'll lean in, hoping your courage can somehow rub off on them. Others will judge you, dismiss you, or label you too much. But all of that says more about their relationship with themselves than it ever says about you. You're not triggering them. Their shadow is reacting to your light. You're not responsible for their unease. You didn't cause their wounds. You simply refuse to pretend. And that refusal makes their avoidance impossible to maintain. Because you walk into a room and show what it means to be emotionally sovereign, to be deeply honest, to be unfiltered in a world addicted to filters. That makes you powerful, but it also makes you polarizing. People don't expect truth to walk in quietly wearing no mask. And when it does, they don't know whether to respect it or run from it. Many will do both. They'll admire you from afar and then whisper about you behind closed doors. They'll get close to your fire until it begins to burn away their falsehoods. Then they'll call you intense as they back away. But let them. Don't shrink to make others feel comfortable in their avoidance. Don't dim just because your brightness exposes what they've buried. You weren't born to walk on eggshells. You were born to walk in truth. And truth will always rattle what's been pretending to be whole. You are not the storm. You are the stillness that makes others hear the thunder within themselves. And while that might make you misunderstood, it also makes you unforgettable. You may have never thought much of it at first, the way a stray dog approached you without fear, the way a child you didn't know suddenly smiled at you, with a kind of familiarity most adults can't fake, or the way the wind seemed to soften around you, the trees almost leaning in as you walked past. You might have dismissed it as coincidence, but it wasn't. It was energy, and energy never lies. Animals, children, and the natural world are untouched by performance. They don't care about your job title, your appearance, or your status. They don't read your resume. They read your frequency. They feel what words cannot hide. And when your energy is grounded calm and aligned with truth, they gravitate toward it like warmth in winter. They respond not to what you project, but to who you really are underneath it all. You've done something many people avoid their whole lives. You've made peace with yourself. And that inner stillness, it radiates outward. It creates an invisible field around you that says you're safe here. You don't have to pretend. Animals feel that. Children sense it instantly. Nature harmonizes with it. It's not magic, it's resonance. It's what happens when a human being returns to their natural state presence without performance. Carl Jung believed that authenticity was not just a moral virtue, but a spiritual one. When you are deeply real, not raw for attention, but raw in peace, the world senses it. Your energy no longer disrupts for attention. It aligns, it settles, it soothes. It creates a sanctuary in a world addicted to overstimulation. That's why you feel drained in loud places. Why artificial environments exhaust you. Why forced interactions feel like static in your body. It's not that you're antisocial. It's that your spirit was designed to commune with what's real, not what's programmed. That's why animals sit next to you without needing a word. Why a toddler in a grocery store locks eyes with you like you're a friend they've known forever. Why the forest feels more like home than most living rooms. You don't force connection. You don't manipulate it. You simply embody the kind of stillness that the rest of the world forgot how to feel. And when you carry that within you, life responds. Not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you've simply stopped pretending. You are what you are, open, awake, peaceful, real. So the next time a cat curls up near your feet, or a child rests their head on your shoulder, without hesitation, understand this. That's not random. That's recognition. It's the rawest parts of life saying, we see you, we trust you. And sometimes the way a dog exhales in your lap or a leaf floats to rest on your arm says more about your soul than any word ever could. That's not sentiment. That's energy. That's truth. And that's you aligned with everything pure enough to feel it. You never walk into a room with the intention to dominate. You don't raise your voice. You don't make grand entrances. You simply arrive calm, grounded, observing. And yet, without uttering a word, the atmosphere changes. People straighten their backs. They speak more carefully. They laugh a little too loud as if to fill the silence your presence creates. It's subtle, but unmistakable. You've seen it happen over and over again, and you've wondered why. Why does my presence shift the energy like that? Why do I make people nervous even when I'm just being myself? The answer isn't found in arrogance, it's found in truth. Because in a world trained to respect noise, your silence is power. You don't intimidate because you seek control. You intimidate because you embody clarity. People are used to loudness masking insecurity, confidence disguised as ego, charisma built on charm. But you walk in with none of that. You don't need approval. You don't need to prove. You simply are. And that stillness, that raw, unshakable self-possession, confronts everything false in the room. Not because you intend to expose it, but because your energy offers no place for inauthenticity to hide. Carl Jung taught that our presence alone reveals the unconscious in others. And you are living proof of that. You walk in with the weight of your healing, the strength of your boundaries, the lessons carved into your soul, and it radiates. It doesn't shout. It simply sits in the center of the space, unwavering. And that is exactly what unsettles people who have built their identity on performance. Your authenticity becomes a quiet challenge to their illusion. Some will mistake your presence for arrogance. Others will call you aloof, cold, even judgmental. But none of that is true. You've simply chosen depth over performance, truth over noise, integrity over popularity. And when someone hasn't faced themselves, when they're still clinging to an image, a role, a mask, your calm presence is like a mirror. It reflects back everything they're not ready to see. And it's easier to call you intimidating than it is to admit they feel small in your presence. But this isn't your burden to carry. You didn't come here to shrink so others can remain comfortable in their disconnection. You came here to live in alignment. And aligned energy doesn't ask for permission to exist. It just is. So don't mistake their discomfort for a flaw in you. Don't confuse their projection with your truth. You're not too much. You're just enough, and that enough feels overwhelming to those still searching for themselves. Walk in your silence. Hold your peace like armor. Because your calm doesn't signal weakness, it's the signature of someone who has walked through storms, stood still in the chaos, and emerged whole. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. Your presence already speaks volumes, and those who are ready for truth will feel it and rise with it. You don't walk into a room trying to change anything. You're not seeking attention. You're not chasing validation. You're just being you, calm, present, aligned. But somehow the moment you enter a space, something subtle yet unmistakable happens. Conversations pause. People glance over without knowing why. A few adjust their posture. Some start talking more. Others go quiet altogether. You didn't speak. You didn't ask for the spotlight. And yet the room shifts. What you're feeling is real. It's not a coincidence. It's not social anxiety. It's not your imagination running wild. What you're witnessing is the effect of energetic presence. Your frequency, your field, your aura, whatever name you give it, enters before your physical body does. And when your energy is aligned, it doesn't blend into chaos. It transforms it. This isn't power through performance. It's not charisma built on learned charm. It's deeper than confidence. It's resonance. You carry a kind of internal coherence, a harmony between your mind, your heart, and your soul that most people rarely experience, let alone embody. That harmony speaks louder than words. It disturbs what's artificial. It awakens what's dormant. And for those who are tuned in, it feels like something ancient just stepped into the room. You may not realize it, but your energy holds layers, echoes of every version of yourself. You've healed every truth. You've accepted every wound. You've transformed. That depth doesn't go unnoticed. People may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. They sense that there's something real about you, something grounded. It's as if your presence carries a frequency they've been searching for but didn't know existed. And when that frequency enters the room, their nervous system responds often before their minds can process it. Some people will feel drawn to you. They'll feel a strange calm around you, like a storm inside them suddenly softened. Others might feel exposed, like your very existence pulls the curtain back on the parts of themselves they've tried to keep hidden. You didn't ask for that role. You didn't try to provoke it. But that's the impact of alignment. It forces everything around it to either rise or reveal itself. You're not just a body. You're not just a personality. You're a field, a current, a silent disruption to the static of pretense. And because of that, you shift frequencies effortlessly. This is why people fumble their words around you, why they second-guess themselves, why they tell you things they've never told anyone, or why they avoid eye contact and exit the room early. Your energy doesn't just occupy space, it rearranges it. Not out of ego, but out of truth. So the next time you walk into a room and feel the atmosphere bend, trust what you feel. That's not an accident. That's alignment in motion. And you, whether you know it or not, are a storm wrapped in silence, transforming every space you enter just by being exactly who you are. You've always sensed it, that invisible tension in the room no one else talks about. Everyone's smiling, the conversation flows, the setting appears lighthearted on the surface. Yet something feels off. The energy doesn't match the expressions. You notice a flicker in someone's eyes when they speak, a subtle shift in body language, a half-second hesitation in their tone. And before they finish their sentence, you already know they're not saying what they mean. Their energy is speaking a different language, and you understand it fluently. This isn't imagination. It's not paranoia. It's not overthinking. It's symbolic perception, as Carl Jung described the ability to perceive emotional patterns and psychological truths without needing words. It's a form of silent intelligence, one that can't be taught in a textbook, but is refined through inner work. When you've spent years peeling back your own layers, confronting your own shadows, and listening to your own silence, you begin to see others differently. Not through judgment, but through clarity. You don't need people to explain themselves. You feel their contradictions. You hear the grief behind their laughter, the insecurity hidden behind their confidence, the jealousy disguised as politeness. You're not looking for flaws. You're simply tuned into the frequency beneath the facade. And once you've heard it, once you've felt it, you can't unfeel it. This can make social situations exhausting. While others enjoy the small talk, you're navigating a sea of suppressed emotion and unspoken tension. It's not that you don't care, it's that you care too deeply. You can sense when someone is carrying pain they haven't named. And in your presence, they often feel it too, sometimes for the first time. That's why some people open up to you without understanding why, and others avoid you altogether. Because when you can see what others are trying to hide, you become both comforting and confronting. You may be labeled too intense, too sensitive, or too serious, but that's only because your awareness threatens superficial connection. You don't play along with what's fake. You can't. Your system rejects it. Your energy field craves depth, honesty, and resonance, not performance. And that craving makes you rare. Because while the world is busy listening to words, you're listening to essence. You're reading the room not by what's said, but by what's felt. This is not a burden. It's a gift, a sacred one. You were born to sense what others miss, to perceive the unseen, to hear the unsaid. And while it can be overwhelming at times, it's also what makes you unforgettable. Because when you look at someone, they don't just feel observed, they feel seen. So trust that perception. Trust that intuitive knowing. It's not accidental. It's hard-earned. You didn't become this way by accident. You became this way through truth. And now you carry that truth like a compass, reading people not through what they show, but through what their soul is quietly trying to say. You smile when expected. You nod at the right moments. You know how to engage politely, how to ask about someone's day, how to comment on the weather or the latest news headline. But inside, something withers. Something slowly retreats with every hollow phrase. Not because you're antisocial, not because you're shy, but because your spirit was never meant to survive on surface-level connection. Small talk doesn't just bore you, it exhausts you. It's like static in your nervous system. It pulls you out of alignment. You're left feeling more alone in a crowded room than you ever did in solitude. You don't want to talk about traffic or trending memes. You want to talk about truth, about what people dream about but are too afraid to chase, and about what keeps them awake at night when no one's watching. You want to know what broke their heart, what healed it, what parts of themselves they've been too scared to show. You want to speak about souls, not roles, about purpose, not pleasantries. And it's not because you're trying to be deep for the sake of it. It's because depth is your home. It's where your energy flows naturally. It's where your presence expands. You don't thrive in noise. You thrive in meaning. When someone drops the mask and speaks from a place of truth, even if it's messy or painful, that's when you come alive. That's when conversation becomes communion. That's when you finally feel less alone in the world. But in today's culture, where attention is fractured, where distractions are constant, and where people often wear their masks so tightly they forget even there, genuine conversation feels rare. And that rarity makes you feel even more isolated. You begin to wonder, is it just me? Am I too much? But the truth is, you're not too much. You're just surrounded by environments that are too little. Too little honesty, too little presence, too little willingness to go beneath the surface. You crave conversations where silence is welcome, where eye contact lingers, where vulnerability isn't seen as weakness, but as invitation. And when you don't get that, when all you're offered is chatter with no soul behind it, your body knows. Your energy contracts. Your chest tightens. You start counting the minutes until you can leave, not because you're rude, but because you're starving for connection and being handed crumbs. So no, you're not broken. You're not distant. You're not impossible to talk to. You're simply wired for truth in a world addicted to pretense. And that's a gift, not a flaw. Because when the right conversation finds you, when someone finally speaks from their soul instead of their script, you don't just hear them, you feel them. And in that moment, both of you remember what it means to be real. And that's why you wait. That's why you walk away from empty noise. Because you'd rather have silence than shallow. You're not here for background chatter, you're here to echo what matters. You've felt it happen more than once. A conversation starts off neutral, even kind, but then suddenly something shifts. A tone sharpens. A compliment turns passive-aggressive. A person you barely know begins to distance themselves, criticize, or act cold without explanation. You walk away confused, wondering if you did something wrong, if you said too much, if you somehow became the villain in someone else's story. But the truth is this: you didn't do anything wrong. You simply showed up as yourself, and that was enough to make someone else's shadow panic. In a world where many people live in denial of their own pain, where image is everything and truth is inconvenient, your authenticity becomes a mirror. And not everyone is ready to see what that mirror reflects. Your light, your clarity, your calm, your unwillingness to wear a mask exposes the places in others where they're still hiding, still performing, still hurting. And instead of facing those truths, they project. Because it's easier to make you the problem than to confront the parts of themselves they buried for years. You may be accused of being too much, too intense, too sensitive, or too distant, all depending on what someone doesn't want to see within themselves. They might say you're arrogant when what they really mean is, I'm insecure next to your self-respect. They might say you're intimidating when they mean I'm uncomfortable because I can't pretend around you. They may even twist your kindness into manipulation or your silence into judgment. But these are not reflections of who you are, they're projections of who they fear they are. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And you are the kind of person who simply by existing in truth makes that terror impossible to ignore. You are the wake-up call many didn't ask for. And while some will thank you for it, others will resent you for disrupting the performance they've worked so hard to maintain. But do not shrink because someone else couldn't handle the way your presence made them feel. Do not start questioning your kindness, your voice, or your boundaries because someone else projected their pain onto your peace. You are not responsible for the darkness others refuse to confront. You are only responsible for staying aligned with your truth. So let them whisper, let them pull away, let them misunderstand you. Their reaction is not your burden, it is their invitation. Whether they accept it or not is not your responsibility. You weren't born to be agreeable. You were born to be authentic. And authenticity will always trigger what's fake. Keep being the mirror. The ones who are ready will see themselves in it and begin to heal. The rest will call it glare and turn away. But even in that turning, you've done your part. You held the truth, and that alone is sacred. You've learned something most people never will, that silence isn't weakness. It's not awkward. It's not empty. It's powerful. You don't raise your voice to be heard. You don't interrupt to assert yourself. You don't need to fight for attention in a world addicted to shouting. Instead, you sit in your stillness, watching, listening, holding your space with quiet clarity. And somehow that silence speaks louder than 1,000 words ever could. It carries weight. It carries presence. And for some, it's unbearable. Because silence, true grounded silence, is confronting. It leaves no place to hide. Most people talk to avoid what they feel. They speak quickly, loudly, constantly, as if sound itself could protect them from their own inner unrest. But you don't do that. You've made peace with quiet. You've learned to sit with your thoughts, your wounds, your truths. And that kind of stillness, it's magnetic to some and threatening to others. You've been in rooms where everyone's performing, posturing, laughing too loudly, filling space with noise. And yet when you enter, calm, centered, unbothered, the air changes. People sense something different. They can't put their finger on it, but they feel it. It's not arrogance. It's not aloofness. It's presence. And presence is rare. It's disruptive. In a culture that equates loud with confident, your quiet becomes a mystery, a challenge, a question they weren't ready to answer. Some mistake your silence for disinterest. Others interpret it as judgment. But in truth, you're not detached, you're discerning. You're not above the conversation, you're listening for something real. You don't speak just to speak. You speak when it matters. And when you do, people listen, not because your voice is louder, but because it's earned. Every word you say carries the weight of thought, of integrity, of self-awareness. That kind of communication is rare, and the world feels it. Carl Jung once said, "Solitude is not the absence of love, but its complement." Likewise, your silence isn't the absence of meaning. It's the container for it. It's the space where everything false dissolves and only what's real remains. You don't rush to fill silence because you've realized something sacred lives inside it. Truth, intuition, clarity. And you trust that what isn't said often says the most. So when others get loud, let them. When they scramble to prove their worth through volume, let them. You don't have to compete. You don't have to match their noise. You've already spoken with your energy, with your restraint, with your stillness. And that stillness, it echoes, it lingers, it reshapes the room long after you've left. You don't command attention. You invite awareness. And those who are ready for real connection, for truth beneath the surface, will find it in your quiet. Because while others are busy trying to be the loudest voice in the room, you've already become the deepest presence. You've probably noticed it by now. There's no middle ground when it comes to how people respond to you. They either feel drawn in like gravity, or they quietly, sometimes suddenly pull away. There is no lukewarm energy in your orbit, no in between, no maybe. People either feel safe in your presence or exposed by it. And the wildest part, you're not even trying. You're not performing. You're not chasing approval. You're simply showing up as your raw, grounded, unfiltered self. And that alone separates the authentic from the artificial. Your energy has become a kind of filter, an energetic boundary that doesn't need words to function. The people who are aligned with truth, who crave honesty, who have done or are doing the work, they recognize you. They feel your calm and see it as a refuge. They're not threatened by your depth. They're relieved by it. Around you, they can exhale. They don't need to pretend. They don't need to impress. Your presence invites them to be real, and real recognizes real. But the ones still living behind masks, the ones who depend on pretense to feel secure, your energy feels like confrontation to them. It's not what you say, it's what you don't say. It's the fact that you're not buying into the roles they play. You're not mirroring their performance. You're not matching their facade. And that makes them uncomfortable, not because you're harsh, but because you're honest. You reflect back what they're trying to avoid. And energy never lies. They may not even know why they feel off around you. But deep down, they sense that with you, the truth is always close. And for someone who's not ready to face themselves, that truth feels dangerous. So they pull away, or they label you cold, or they say there's just something about you I can't quite trust. But what they really mean is, I don't know how to hide from you. This isn't about ego, it's about frequency. The truth is, you've outgrown environments, conversations, and relationships that aren't built on honesty, and your nervous system knows it. Your spirit knows it. So when something fake enters your space, you don't even have to resist. Your energy simply doesn't match. It doesn't absorb. It doesn't entertain. It repels. Effortlessly. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. So if people fall away from your life without clear explanation, let them. You don't need closure from someone who never showed up as their full self to begin with. You don't need to question your worth every time someone avoids your depth. You're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to be found by the few who can meet you where you live in truth. And those people, they'll feel you instantly, just like you'll feel them. No performance, no mask, just mutual recognition, just soul to soul. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to announce your strength. You don't need to make grand declarations about who you are or what you've survived. The way you sit, the way you breathe, the way you enter a room in silence, it says enough. There's something in your presence that's unnerving to the performative, yet grounding to the real. Because your calm isn't passive, it's earned. It's not the kind of calm that comes from avoiding the fire. It's the kind that's forged inside it. You've walked through storms that almost broke you, nights where your soul felt splintered, where your breath was heavy, where the pain was so loud inside you that the outside world went quiet. But you didn't numb it. You didn't run. You sat with the storm. You let it teach you. You listened. You suffered consciously, and that changed you. You didn't come out untouched, but you came out clear, aligned, unshakable, and now you carry that with you, not like armor, but like gravity. It's not something you flaunt. It's just there, in your gaze, in your stillness, in the way your energy doesn't flinch even when others try to provoke. You're not reactive. You're aware, and that awareness feels powerful because it is. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." You've earned that privilege. You've stripped away the noise, the lies, the borrowed identities. You've faced the darker parts of yourself and made peace with them. And now your presence holds a paradox, soft and solid kind, and firm, calm, and commanding. That's why people feel something ancient in you, something sacred. Some will misunderstand it. They'll think you're cold, distant, unemotional. But what they don't realize is that your stillness isn't a lack of feeling. It's the result of having felt everything and survived. You don't carry chaos because you've learned how to hold it, process it, and release it. You've gone to war with your own mind and emerged not with scars that demand attention, but with a quiet strength that needs no explanation. You don't need validation. You don't need to be right. You just need to be. And in a world addicted to reaction, addicted to speed, to conflict, to noise, that kind of calm feels like rebellion, like power. So don't mistake your peace for passivity. Don't let anyone minimize the weight of your silence. You are not calm because life has been easy. You are calm because you've chosen to respond to it with intention. You are the eye of your own storm. And people feel that. They sense the battles you fought in the way you don't tremble anymore. You don't carry a weapon. You are the weapon, sharpened by pain, guided by wisdom, and anchored in truth. You're not trying to fix anyone. You're not handing out advice. You're not walking around with a healer's badge or trying to play the role of a savior. But people soften around you. They exhale in your presence. They begin to speak differently, not louder, not more confidently, but more honestly. And they often don't know why. What they don't realize is that it isn't your words doing the healing. It's your energy. It's the way you hold space without judgment. It's the way your presence gives unspoken permission to be real. Most people move through the world carrying invisible wounds, disappointments, never spoken grief, never processed masks worn so long they've forgotten the face underneath. And then they encounter you. Someone who doesn't demand a performance, someone whose silence feels safer than most people's validation. And in that space, something inside them begins to unravel, not in fear, but in relief. Their defenses start to melt. Their nervous system begins to settle. Because you're not there to fix them, you're there to feel them. And that difference changes everything. You've done the inner work. You've faced your own shadows. You've sat in your own silence until it became sanctuary. That's why people sense something different in you. You're not trying to be light, you've walked through your own darkness and made peace with it. And that kind of energy doesn't speak through volume, it speaks through vibration, through calm, through truth. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." That's what you do naturally, effortlessly. You don't just bring comfort, you bring clarity. And sometimes that clarity feels like exposure. Not because you intend it, but because your energy reveals. It reflects. It reaches into the places most people have avoided for years. Some people will thank you. They'll say things like, "I don't know why, but I feel like I can be myself around you." Others may pull away without explanation, not because you hurt them, but because being seen so clearly can feel terrifying for someone not ready to face themselves. But whether they stay or walk away, one thing remains true. No one leaves your presence unchanged. You're not healing people with techniques or strategies. You're healing them with presence, with the way your stillness holds space for truth, with the way your eyes don't demand perfection but invitation, with the way your energy whispers, "You're safe here. You can put it down now." So don't underestimate what you carry. Don't dismiss the impact you make just because it's quiet. In a world that shouts to be heard, your calm is revolutionary. Your presence isn't just comforting, it's catalytic. You don't heal by doing, you heal by being. And that kind of healing, that's the kind that actually lasts. You've felt it your entire life, that quiet tension in the room, when you speak the truth no one else is willing to say. That awkward silence that falls after your presence interrupts the performance. That look in someone's eyes when they realize you see right through the script they've been clinging to. And maybe for a while you thought something was wrong with you. You wondered why people acted strange around you, why certain environments made your skin crawl, why you couldn't just go along to get along, but now you're beginning to see the truth. You weren't born to fit in. You were born to shake the foundations of everything built on illusion. You disturb what's fake, not through aggression, not through confrontation, but through presence. Your energy doesn't match the frequency of falsehood, and so wherever you go, things that are inauthentic begin to fall apart. Smiles feel forced, conversations feel strained, and people either rise to meet you in truth or they retreat to protect their mask. There is no in-between when you walk in the room. You carry something that can't be manipulated, something that can't be faked. You carry alignment. Carl Jung believed that confronting the shadow was the only way to achieve wholeness. And you, whether you know it or not, are a living invitation for that confrontation. Not because you demand it, but because your very existence exposes the places where others are still hiding. You're not a storm of chaos. You're a storm of clarity. And clarity has consequences. It brings discomfort to those who've made comfort out of pretending. Some people will love you instantly. Others will resent you without understanding why. You didn't provoke them. You didn't criticize them. You just walked in as yourself, unapologetically real. And that in a world addicted to mass is a radical act. But this is your calling. You weren't sent here to make people feel safe in their lies. You were sent to remind them of the truth they buried beneath survival, performance, and fear. Your aura doesn't just glow, it disrupts. Your presence doesn't just inspire, it awakens. And sometimes awakening looks like collapse. Sometimes healing begins with chaos. And you simply, by being who you are, become the catalyst for that process. So stop apologizing for being too honest, too intense, too much. You're not too much. You're just more real than what most people are used to. And that will always stir discomfort before it inspires growth. You weren't born to be tolerated. You were born to be transformational. Let them stare. Let them misunderstand. Let them crumble. Because every time your truth collides with their illusion, something sacred happens, the false starts to fall, and the real begins to rise. In a world obsessed with appearances, noise, and performance, one of the most radical things you can do is be real. Not loud, not perfect, just real. The kind of real that doesn't need approval to exist. The kind of real that can sit in silence without shrinking. That's the quiet revolution you've been carrying inside you all along. And maybe it's time to stop hiding it. You weren't born to fit into shallow conversations, fake smiles, or rooms built on performance. You were born to shift the room to mirror truth back to those who forgot what it looks like. That's why you trigger people. That's why some back away when you say nothing at all. Because your energy tells the truth even when your mouth is silent. The lesson here is simple but life-changing. Stop apologizing for your presence. Stop editing your truth just because someone else hasn't faced theirs. Your calm, your depth, your authenticity, it is the medicine, the disruption, the invitation. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Just live it. Just embody it. That's more than enough. And if some people leave, let them. You didn't lose them. You lost the weight of being misunderstood. What remains, what stays, is what's real. And real doesn't flinch in the face of truth. It rises with it. So keep showing up. Quietly powerful, deeply awake, fully you. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more presence. And that's exactly what you're here to offer.